Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. We have some major breaking news to get into today, and I want you to hear it clearly, calmly, and directly from someone who spent years helping seniors make sense of the financial decisions happening in Washington. President Trump has just signed a new executive order, and at the same time, the White House has officially confirmed something that has millions of Americans, especially seniors, paying very close attention. With all the confusion online, the rumors, the headlines, and the mixed information spreading everywhere, many of you are asking the same question. Are these new dividend checks real? And are they truly being targeted to specific groups? Well, today I'm going to walk you through the facts exactly as they are without the noise, the panic, or the politics. I've spent hours reviewing the official statements, watching the ceremony, and going through every detail of President Trump's posts so you don't have to. My goal is simple: to help you understand what this means for your wallet, who is actually being targeted for these payments, and what this could realistically look like for you as a senior living on a fixed income. If you're new here, my name is Susan Harper. For more than 10 years, I've been helping American seniors navigate Social Security decisions, retirement savings challenges, and the constant changes in government policies that affect their everyday lives. And I know how quickly breaking news can create anxiety, especially when it involves money you may desperately need. That's why I want you to feel like you're sitting across from a friend who cares deeply about your financial security. Someone who will slow everything down and make it easy to understand. So, let's take a deep breath together and walk through this step by step, because what's happening right now is bigger than just a headline. It affects real people, real families, and real budgets. Let's start with the part everyone is talking about. Yes, President Trump did sign an executive order in a public ceremony. And yes, at nearly the same time, the White House confirmed that his administration is actively pushing forward with a plan to issue new dividend payments funded by tariff revenue. Now, the executive order itself had nothing to do with those payments, something the internet is mixing together left and right. But the confirmation about these dividend checks is very real, and it's something we need to understand clearly. Trump has repeated multiple times that these payments are aimed at specific groups, particularly lower and middle-income Americans, and that includes a very large number of seniors who live on fixed incomes, Social Security benefits, military pensions, or disability payments. That's why I'm here, because before anyone gets their hopes too high or dismisses this as just another political promise, we need to slow down and unpack exactly what's been confirmed, what hasn't, and what truly matters for you. So, let's move into the facts and break down what actually happened versus what people think happened, because those are two very different stories. Ready? Let's walk through it together. Now, let's clear up the biggest misunderstanding that's been spreading online, because I want you to feel grounded in the truth before we go any deeper. President Trump and First Lady Melania did sign an executive order, and it was presented in a very public way, which is why so many people assumed it had something to do with these new dividend payments. But here's the real story. That executive order was focused on supporting teenagers aging out of the foster care system. It was an emotional and meaningful moment, especially for the families and advocates involved, but it had absolutely nothing to do with the $2,000 dividend checks people keep hearing about. What happened is simple. Two different announcements happened at the same time, and the internet blended them into one big dramatic headline. And seniors, especially those depending on Social Security or struggling with rising costs, saw those words executive order and payments in the same breath and assumed one directly triggered the other. I completely understand why. When you're watching the news and stretched thin financially, it's easy to connect dots that weren't actually meant to connect. That's why I wanted to start here. You deserve clarity, not confusion, and certainly not false hope or unnecessary fear. So, here's the part that is true and deeply relevant to you. Separate from the foster care executive order, the White House has directly confirmed that President Trump is pushing forward with his plan to issue new dividend payments funded by tariff revenue, and this confirmation didn't come from rumors or viral posts. It came directly from statements made by the administration and by the president himself. Trump published several messages outlining how these payments would work, who they're meant for, and why he believes tariff revenue makes this possible. This is where things become especially important for seniors. In his own words, Trump said the administration intends to issue a dividend of at least $2,000 per person, specifically for lower and middle-income Americans. High-income earners would be excluded entirely. That means these payments are not for everyone. They're being targeted to groups that need support the most. And if you're a senior living on fixed income, if you rely on Social Security, if you're a veteran receiving disability, or if you're a single parent or grandparent raising children on a modest income, you fall right into the category Trump is talking about. But before anyone jumps ahead or assumes they're automatically eligible, we need to dig deeper into the details hidden in the fine print of those statements. Trump emphasized two key points. These payments would go only to U.S. citizens, and they would be structured for low and middle-income households. That tells us a lot. Even though the exact income limits haven't been publicly finalized, we do have a strong clue from previous legislation Trump supported. When Senator Josh Hawley proposed a tariff dividend bill months ago, a bill Trump publicly backed, it capped eligibility at individuals earning under $100,000. So, while nothing official has been written into law yet, it gives us a strong indication that those earning under six figures are likely the primary group being considered. If you fall into that range, this proposal is aimed directly at people like you. But we'll break this down more clearly in the next section so you know exactly what it could mean for your situation. Now that we've separated rumor from reality, let's talk about what President Trump actually confirmed, because this is the part many seniors have been waiting for. In his public statements, especially the ones shared on Truth Social, Trump laid out the clearest explanation yet of how these dividend checks would work. He argued that the critics of tariffs are missing the bigger picture, saying that the revenue created through these tariffs can be used not just to strengthen the economy, but to directly support American families. And then he made the promise that caught everyone's attention: a dividend of at least $2,000 per person, targeted specifically to low and middle-income Americans. This wasn't hinted at, it wasn't implied. He stated it loudly and plainly. And that matters because public commitments like this, statements made with millions of people watching, are not easily walked back. When a president puts something in writing and repeats it across multiple platforms, it signals that the administration is actively working on some form of official pathway, even if it isn't complete yet. What's especially important for you as a senior is the group Trump repeatedly emphasized. He stressed that these payments are meant for middle and lower income people, which is exactly the population facing the most pressure right now. He directly referenced families living on modest budgets, people trying to keep up with rising grocery prices, seniors on fixed incomes, veterans relying on disability payments, and households struggling with medical costs. These are not high earners. These are everyday Americans, the people who feel inflation the most and have the least room to absorb financial surprises. That's the group Trump is describing. And he didn't stop there. He also explained that any leftover tariff revenue after issuing these payments would be used to pay down the national debt. So when we look at the total picture, it's a two-part plan. Give immediate relief to lower and middle-income citizens and use the remaining funds to strengthen the country's financial footing. Whether you agree or disagree with the politics behind it, the intention he's putting forward is very clear. Now let's talk about what these qualifications likely look like, because this is where many seniors start asking, will I qualify? Should I expect this money? While Trump didn't provide exact income numbers in his post, we have a strong reference point from the earlier tariff dividend proposal that he supported. That bill limited eligibility to Americans earning $100,000 or less. And based on the way Trump described middle and lower income people, it's extremely likely that a similar cutoff could be used again. So what does that mean for you? If you're a senior living on Social Security, if you earn below the $100,000 threshold, if you depend on VA benefits, SSDI payments, or a modest retirement income, you're probably within the targeted range this plan is meant for. But another key part of Trump's message is that these payments would go only to U.S. citizens. He said this explicitly, and that detail is important because it immediately rules out individuals with visas, temporary residency, or non-citizen status. In other words, the program is aimed at Americans who are part of the tax and benefit system and are financially vulnerable. But it's just as important to understand who's likely excluded. High-income earners, especially those well above six figures, are not part of this proposal. Trump said that very directly. And for many seniors watching this, that clarity might bring a sense of reassurance. This isn't a wide-open program where everyone gets the same thing. It's a targeted plan aimed at the people who need help the most. Still, I want to stress this gently and honestly. While the public statements are strong, the exact eligibility won't be official until legislation or a formal framework is released. But based on everything we know, seniors with modest incomes are very much at the heart of this discussion. And in the next section, we'll break down what the funding source means and how realistic it is that this money could reach your bank account. Now that we understand who these payments are intended for, let's take a closer look at something many people still feel confused about. Where would this money actually come from? Because no matter how promising a proposal sounds, seniors deserve to know whether the funding behind it is realistic or just political noise. The foundation of this entire plan is tariff revenue. And if that phrase feels heavy or complicated, don't worry. Let me explain it in the simplest, clearest way possible. When the U.S. places tariffs on imported goods, whether it's steel, automobiles, pharmaceuticals, or consumer products, companies importing those items must pay a fee to the government. Think of it as a tax on foreign goods. All of that money goes directly into the U.S. Treasury. And depending on the level of tariff set, it can add up to significant revenue. President Trump has repeatedly argued that these tariffs are generating more money than many experts predicted. In his recent statements, he framed tariff revenue as a powerful tool that could be used in two ways. First, to help everyday Americans through a direct dividend, and second, to reduce the national debt. And for some context, Trump even compared this idea to the Alaska Permanent Fund, which sends yearly payments to Alaska residents using profits from the state's oil resources. Now, while tariffs and oil revenue are two very different things, the concept of taking government-collected funds and redistributing part of it to citizens is not new. The Alaska model shows that this type of system can exist in the U.S., at least on a state level. What Trump is suggesting is a national version of that idea, one built on tariffs instead of natural resources. But here's where we also need to stay grounded. For these payments to move from idea to reality, there has to be a legal structure for distributing them. That means Congress would likely need to pass legislation, or the administration would need a legally sound executive mechanism that can withstand federal rules and potential legal challenges. So, while the revenue source does exist, the question becomes, how fast can it be organized into a system that delivers money to Americans? That part is still unknown. And seniors deserve honesty about that. This plan has significant momentum and strong public messaging behind it. But like every major federal payment in the past, it cannot happen overnight. Still, the fact that the administration is discussing tariff revenue as a direct funding source is notable. It means the conversation has moved beyond ideas and into early-stage structure, and that's a meaningful shift. Now let's talk about the question everyone has been asking because I know this part weighs heavily on your mind. When could these payments realistically arrive? And I want to be as transparent and gentle as possible here. As of today, there is no official date for these dividend checks to go out, no calendar set, no federal schedule. And I know that might be disappointing to hear, especially with the excitement these announcements have created. But honesty is the only thing that truly protects your financial peace of mind. Whether you're living on Social Security, managing rising medical bills, or trying to stretch a fixed pension, I never want you to make decisions based on assumptions or incomplete information. Here's the truth. Even though the White House has acknowledged the plan and President Trump has spoken about it repeatedly, we are still in the promise stage, not the payment stage. For federal money to reach your bank account, whether by direct deposit or by paper check, there must be a legally approved framework. That could be a bill passed through Congress or a different method that meets federal requirements. And history gives us a little guidance. During the pandemic, every major stimulus payment required full legislative approval. Even when the government moved quickly, it still took weeks for laws to pass and payments to be processed. So, if similar rules apply here, we could be looking at a timeline of several weeks to a few months once a formal plan is introduced. But here's the hopeful side of this moment. Public promises made at this scale are difficult for any administration to walk away from. When millions of Americans are listening, watching, and waiting, pressure builds. Lawmakers respond to that pressure. It doesn't guarantee anything, but it makes the possibility stronger. So, as we move forward, I want you to stay informed, stay cautious, and stay realistic. Hope is healthy. Planning your budget around unapproved money is not. And in the next two sections, we're going to talk about exactly what this proposal could mean for seniors like you and why your demographic is at the center of this conversation. Let's now talk about what this proposal could mean specifically for seniors, because this is where many of you will feel the impact most personally if these payments move forward. And again, we are still waiting on official legislation. The groups most likely to feel the greatest relief are older Americans living on fixed incomes. For many seniors, Social Security isn't just a monthly deposit. It's the foundation of your entire budget. You're stretching every dollar to cover prescription costs, heating bills, groceries, medical appointments, and rising insurance premiums. A $2,000 payment wouldn't solve every financial challenge, but it could ease some pressure you've been carrying alone for far too long. It could help fill prescription medications you've been delaying. It could cover the gap on a medical bill you've been worrying about. It could help you rebuild a little savings cushion or simply buy a few months of breathing room. This proposal is also meaningful for veterans, especially those relying on disability benefits or modest military retirement income. Many veterans tell me how quickly those benefits get eaten up by medical costs and daily needs. A one-time payment like this could finally give them space to catch up. The same goes for disabled Americans living on SSDI. Inflation has hit this group incredibly hard. Food, transportation, energy bills, everything has climbed. A targeted dividend like this would go directly to the people who genuinely feel that pressure. And if you're a senior raising grandchildren or supporting adult children and helping with household expenses, that $2,000 becomes even more meaningful. These aren't luxuries. It's help with school supplies, rent, or simply keeping the home running. But with that said, I want to gently share a reality that matters just as much as the hope. Even though the plan is directed at seniors and other lower and middle income groups, nothing is guaranteed until the legal framework is officially in place. And that's why I don't want you to reorganize your finances around the expectation of this money. Don't skip paying a bill because you think a check is coming. Thanks for watching.